Hey explorers, let's take a quick trip back to the early 1900s, where cats were a shipmate. Yeah, you heard that right. Today we're diving into the tale of Mrs. Chippy, the most legendary feline to ever set paw on Antarctic ice. And before you ask, no, Mrs. Chippy wasn't some glamorous explorer's wife. He was a tough little tabby who had no problem braving the freezing cold alongside some of the bravest men of the era. So grab your hot cocoa and let's get cozy with this chilly tale. Our story begins in 1914 during Sir Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. The crew aboard the Endurance was gearing up for one of the most ambitious adventures in history, crossing the entire continent of Antarctica. Now, you might think this is a mission that would require only the toughest, most hardcore crew members, right? Well, guess what? They also had a carpenter named Harry Chippy McNish and his trusty cat, Mrs. Chippy. Mrs. Chippy was no ordinary cat. He quickly became a beloved member of the crew. This tabby could walk the narrowest ledges of the ship like a pro gymnast, earning the respect of everyone on board. Think Simone Biles, but with whiskers and a tail. And when it came to keeping morale high during those icy days at sea, Mrs. Chippy was the real MVP, always there with a purr and a snuggle. But just as things were getting cozy, the Endurance hit some serious trouble, literally. The ship got trapped in packed ice, leading to one of the most epic survival stories of all time. Unfortunately, this is where Mrs. Chippy's journey takes a heartbreaking turn. With the ship stuck and resources dwindling, Shackleton had to make some tough decisions, and sadly keeping a cat on a sinking ship wasn't one of them. Mrs. Chippy was put to rest along with some of the sled dogs, a decision that haunted McNish, his devoted owner, for the rest of his life. But here's the silver lining. Mrs. Chippy's story didn't end there. This brave little cat became a symbol of loyalty, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their pets. And in 2004, over 90 years later, a statue of Mrs. Chippy was erected next to Mithbisha's grave in New Zealand, proving that heroes come along in all shapes and sizes and, yes, even species. So the next time you're bundled up with your cat on a cold night, just remember, you're sharing your couch with a legacy of adventure and bravery. And if your cat happens to be a bit of a daredevil, well, you might just have the next Mrs. Chippy on your hands.